You watching yesterday, and this has kind of been on my mind for a while, and I think it really hit me because of who's coming into town tonight with the series starting against the Milwaukee Brewers. But Hugh, I was watching last night's game, and even the first game, because the offense didn't do much, right? We know Bryce hasn't been in there, and we'll get to that and how quickly Bryce will get back in the lineup. But I have felt for a while the Phillies' offense is missing a bat. I just feel like they have Schwarber, Harper, Turner, right? Those are the three best hitters, and Castellanos has had a fine year. I wouldn't call it bad by any stretch.
He's been for our purposes, he's been kind of quiet.
He's been kind of quiet.
Yeah, I mean, well, we haven't had a lot to say about him.
Yes. Yesterday he had a good day, but overall, I say just a okay Castellanos season so far.
Yeah.
And the other players in the lineup, mostly average or below when you look at their numbers compared to the rest of baseball. And I look at that and say, well, if you have 3 or 4 hitters, you probably need one more to really have enough to win the World Series. So I think they're missing a bat here. And I think there's a bat, in fact, I know there's a bat that's coming in tonight that fits in every way possible. In the clubhouse, in the lineup, in the city, in the fan base. And for me, it's one of those where, like, I get a redo on this because I don't think I appreciated this guy enough when he was here. I always seem to draw more on what he didn't do well than what he did. And I've missed his bat since he's gone. Hugh, I want to bring Rhys Hoskins back. The Phillies host the Brewers tonight. Milwaukee is about a 500 team. Hoskins could be a free agent after the season. I don't think Milwaukee's going to keep him, and I think they'd be the kind of team that would be very open to trading him at the deadline. Hugh, I want to bring Rhys Hoskins back. I want to trade for him at the trade deadline, and I'm willing to move Bryce Harper off of first base in order to do it. Bring Rhys back, put him at first base, get Harper back in the outfield, and then what I do is I have Kepler as kind of like a part-time player, platoon guy. And I think I make this team better and give him a better chance to win the World Series. I want to bring Rhys Hoskins back. Hugh, where do you come down?
You know what? Initially, when I saw, like, he was one of the top 10 players in Major League Baseball that people were talking about that, probably wouldn't talk about on a regular.
Yeah, like under the radar.
Yeah, under the radar. That's what it was. That was, as a matter of fact, that was the story. It was 10 guys in Major League Baseball right now that are flying under the radar. And I remember mentioning that to you a few weeks ago, and I was like, damn, Rhys is having a pretty good year so far. And initially, I was kind of on board with it. But when Bryce got hurt, it just made me realize that the reason why we moved Bryce to first base was because of injury concerns. And now you're talking about moving him back out there, and he has an injury. I don't want to do that. As much as I would like to have him here, and we talked about that, I would say in this moment and with Bryce's health up in the air, nah. No, not at all.
All right, so here's what and look, I understand that, and that's part of the reason why they moved Bryce Harper to first base. That's part of it. They also wanted to become a better defensive team, and this would make them a worse defense team. I accept that. I know it because I know everyone's going to say, well, they're worse defensively. They're bad defensively anyway. Like, they're just not a good defensive team. They're good at second. They're good at first right now. They're good at catcher. Center field sometimes, when it's Rojas out there, they're good. Right field, they're not very good. Left field, pretty good. Third base and shortstop, not good. It's a below-average defensive team anyway. They're not going to win with their defense. And, in fact, the furthest this team ever went was with their offense when Rhys Hoskins was in the lineup. And I'm glad you brought it up. I don't think people realize the kind of season he's having. I think a full year removed from the injury he had, in spring training of 2023, he's back. If you put Rhys Hoskins in this lineup right now, he'd be second on the team in on-base percentage, second on the team in OPS. He'd be third in home runs. They're missing some slug. They're missing some extra base.
I totally agree, but
he'd provide that.
But if you do that, and I like Rhys, and I think the players here like him because his name has been evoked a few times in this locker room. I just think that when you talk about where Bryce is now, and he was starting to be the Bryce that we remember. To move him into the outfield, I just think that would probably be detrimental to his health.
Well, I think he could survive. Look, obviously we got to hope he's back soon from the elbow injury he suffered with the hit by pitch. But I think he'd be okay in the outfield for a few months. I think it would make the team and the lineup stronger. 215-592-9494. It's funny you mentioned the clubhouse because a couple weeks ago, Tim Kelly on Pattison asked a bunch of Phillies players what makes a great clubhouse guy, right? What makes a great leader. And he wasn't asking them specifically about anybody, in like why was this guy good or just in general, like what makes a good clubhouse leader. And a few Phillies players, unprompted, mentioned Rhys Hoskins. Like you could tell that his effect on that clubhouse and how much they appreciated him it still reverberates years after he's not even here anymore. He was a great clubhouse guy then. They loved him then. And I just feel like it'd be maybe also part of it for me is this story. Like the idea of this whole thing coming back here. He helped start this rebuild, and then he was in the World Series. Unfortunately, he couldn't get back and healthy for 23. And I think he's the missing piece of the offense. 215-592-9494. I also heard this, Dave Dombrowski on the show a couple days ago, and they were asking him the trade deadline and what they could use and improvements. And he did mention, well, the offense could use a little more pop here.
We don't have a glaring hole there, but we just need a lot of improvements by the individuals. And the other thing I'll say is that the one place we're not really productive at this year, we haven't hit a lot of balls in the gap. I think we're only 8th in the National League in doubles. We have a club that traditionally would be very good in that regard. So we've got a lot of singles, we got walks, we got the on-base percentage. But I think as time goes on, these are proven big league hitters that have driven the ball in the gap, and I think they'll pick that up as the year goes on.
Doubles, says Dave Dombrowski. Every 162 games, Rhys averages 33 doubles. He hits homers, he gets on base, he doesn't chase, and he hits the ball in the gap. 215-592-9494. Last year, it was the return of Rhys Hoskins, and we debated whether or not he should be cheered, and then he had a home run, and then all that happened. This year, he's coming back to town, and I want him to come back to town full-time. I want Rhys Hoskins back as a Philly. If you had played this audio for me from the future a few years ago, I would have said, you're crazy. There's no way I'd ever say this. Well, I missed him. I miss him. I miss what he brought to this team. I want him back. Where do you come down? Kyle, what are you thinking? Rhys Hoskins, trade deadline. Should we bring him back?
It feels like just the perfect fit for the Phillies right now. The Brewers are scuffling. Rhys is having a great season. They can trade him. They might trade him. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they're sellers at the deadline.
Yep.
And I just look at this Phillies lineup, and I was at the game last night, and I think one of the pivotal moments was Alec Boehm up at the plate with the bases loaded. And, feeble ground out. Doesn't really feel like Boehm ever comes through in those moments. It feels like the Phillies don't come through in those moments. And I saw this stat from Jeff Kerr about the Phillies this season with the bases loaded. They bat 171, which is 27th in baseball. Really bad. And that feels like that's sort of been a problem for the Phillies for years now. Just for context, the Miami Marlins are 423 as a team with the bases loaded, and the Colorado Rockies are 381 as a team with the bases loaded. It's difficult to not get hits and be that bad with the bases loaded. And Rhys Hoskins, I got a nice little career OPS number for you with the bases loaded.
What do you got?
902.
Woo! It's
the perfect fit for this lineup. And if you just think about it, you visualize what this lineup is, you throw the name Rhys Hoskins in there, and it just looks that much deeper.
It does.
Like the guys at the bottom of the lineup, they're further down in the lineup, and that middle of the lineup looks so much more imposing. And I understand that his defense is not great. It's not improved, I don't think, since he's been here. But here's the thing that's different about the Phillies from 2022 to now. Their pitching's better. They have better starting pitching that can make up for the bad defense. And if you add Hoskins to the lineup again, their offense is going to be good enough to make up for what he lacks in defense. I think it's such a no-brainer to bring Rhys Hoskins back.
How about this? I started playing around with the lineup ideas this morning, too. Against a right-handed pitcher, how about this top five? Stott, Turner, Harper, Schwarber, Hoskins. Hoskins protecting Schwarber. Hoskins protecting Harper. 215-592-9494. Should the Phillies bring back Rhys Hoskins? He's in town tonight. The Milwaukee Brewers are back. I think he's the missing piece. You could call him the missing Rhys here. Put that in your parlay, Hugh Douglas. Rhys Hoskins.
The missing Rhys.
The missing Rhys.
And we got to get Bryce healthy first, man.
Bryce will be fine.
I just remember.
Bryce will be
fine.
I
just remember that was the big reason why, we got rid of Rhys because Bryce was trying to keep him healthy.
He said he'd be willing to move off of first
base. I'm not saying
for the right guy.
I am not
and
saying
Rhys the right. Harper was one of the ones who said clubhouse guys.
And same one that took his job though.
Yep.
Well,
looks like he'd be willing to give it back.
But you know what? Everyone could change their mind about things. Maybe Bryce didn't appreciate Rhys enough at the time. Maybe he does.
Is that
now.
what it is?
I'm just speculating.
A mistake?
Yeah, just reckless. But
took his job.
Yeah, he took his job. Sure, he did. But now he guess we.
Joe don't watch South Park. Took his job.
Maybe you know what he can do? He can give his job back to him, make the team better.